The twin suns of Raltharis glimmered across the horizon, casting a golden haze over the sprawling colonies below. From orbit, the planet looked peaceful. Fields of green stretched alongside shimmering lakes while human settlements sprawled carefully along the plains. To most, it was a world of hope, a symbol of humanity's reach into the stars. To Captain Ilara Miles, however, it was a fragile piece, one that could shatter in an instant. Ilara stood on the bridge of the Resolute, the flagship of the interstellar human command. Her uniform was crisp, her posture straight, yet her eyes betrayed concern. She gazed at the display showing the outer colonies, her mind running faster than the information streaming before her. Reports had come in over the past week, rumors of unrest, of rebellion, of humans rising against the government they had once supported. Her fingers tapped against the console, a quiet rhythm to steady her thoughts. She had fought many battles, led her troops through skirmishes in hostile star systems, but nothing felt like this. This was not just about winning a fight. This was about people, human lives, and the morality of command weighed heavily on her shoulders. Captain Miles, her first officer, Lieutenant Ryden, said, breaking the quiet, "The outer colonies have refused repeated orders to stand down. High Command insists we move immediately. They've already allocated your army for deployment." Ilara turned to him, her sharp green eyes meeting his. "Ryden, I understand their orders," she said slowly. "But we need to know why this is happening. We cannot treat every human as an enemy." Ryden frowned. "With respect, Captain, orders are orders. Hesitation could cost lives." Ilara exhaled slowly, knowing he was right. But she could not shake the feeling that there was more to this rebellion than simple defiance. Something in the colony's sudden anger and coordination felt forced, and it unnerved her. "Prepare the army," she said finally, "but keep me updated on the civilian reports. I want to know exactly who we are facing." The lieutenant nodded, though he still seemed unsure. Soldiers and officers alike respected Ilara because she led with skill and courage, but she also had a reputation for humanity, something that sometimes clashed with the strict military protocol. Her empathy, while rare in a leader, had saved countless lives. The Resolute descended through Raltharis's upper atmosphere, passing clouds that glowed gold in the twin suns' light. Below, sprawling cities dotted the landscape. Ilara's eyes scanned the settlements carefully. From space, she could already see signs of tension. Smoke rising from a few buildings, small groups of civilians moving hurriedly through the streets. "Report," she said. "Civilians are still in their homes, Captain," Ryden replied. "The rebels seem to be concentrated in the industrial sectors near the northern plateau. The numbers are larger than we expected, possibly 5,000 armed insurgents." Ilara's jaw tightened. 5,000 was not a number to ignore, especially when civilians were trapped in the same area. "And the aliens?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ryden hesitated. "There's no confirmed presence, but intelligence suggests they may be influencing the leaders. Subtle interference, nothing direct, yet," Ilara nodded slowly. She had suspected as much. The galaxy was never simple, and where humans were in conflict, others often sought to take advantage. That was why the human command had sent her, not just to fight, but to think, to negotiate, to lead in a way that no other species could. Hours passed as the army descended. Ilara oversaw the deployment from the command center, her mind moving through every scenario. She watched as armored vehicles rolled into formation, as soldiers checked weapons and loaded supplies. Every movement was precise, disciplined, yet beneath it all was a tension she could feel like an electric current. Later, in a quiet moment before landing, she walked along the observation deck, alone. She looked out at the world below, imagining the families who lived there. Children running to school, workers tending machines, farmers harvesting crops, all of them unaware that their lives might soon be disrupted. She could not turn away from the truth. Her mission was not just to win a battle, but to protect humanity, even those who might fight against her. Her thoughts drifted to her own past. She remembered the early days of interstellar colonization, when humans first stepped into the stars. It had been chaotic and dangerous, but also filled with wonder. Every challenge they had faced, every unknown planet, every hostile alien, every civil conflict, had been overcome by human ingenuity, determination, and moral courage. That courage had carried her through countless conflicts, and now she would need it more than ever. The landing was smooth, almost too smooth, as if the planet itself were holding its breath. The army deployed on the northern plateau, forming a protective perimeter around the city. From her vantage point, Ilara could see the rebellion's initial lines, small clusters of armed humans who watched warily from behind barricades and buildings. She dismounted from her transport and walked toward the outer edge of the city, her armor light but functional. Soldiers flanked her, their eyes wide with respect and caution. Some of them had fought alongside her in previous campaigns and trusted her judgment implicitly. Others were new, unsure if the human captain could truly balance compassion with the duty to command. "Keep your eyes open," Ilara told them quietly. "Not every human here is your enemy." The soldiers nodded, some skeptically, others with visible relief. Even in moments of tension, her presence instilled a sense of calm. She understood fear, but she also knew that fear could become courage if guided wisely. As she approached the city's outskirts, she noticed signs of life, people peeking out from behind walls, children clutching toys, merchants staring cautiously from their shops. None of them seemed armed, though she knew appearances could be deceiving. Her eyes lingered on one young girl hiding behind a cart, clutching a small bundle of food. The child's fear mirrored her own inner turmoil. Ilara's communicator buzzed. "Captain, sensors detect unusual energy signatures in the northern blocks," Raiden reported. "It could be alien interference." Ilara frowned, her mind already running through strategies. "Keep the perimeter tight. Do not engage yet. I need to see this for myself." She moved closer, stepping carefully between barricades, observing the rebels and civilians alike. It was clear the city had been preparing for conflict, but not for total destruction. Makeshift shelters and hidden passages suggested that people hoped to survive rather than to conquer. Hours passed as she walked among them, blending observation with careful calculation. She spoke softly to a few civilians, asking questions, offering reassurances, but she kept her focus on the bigger picture. Her army waited outside, ready for orders, unaware that their captain was preparing to face this situation personally. By the time the twin suns began to set, casting long shadows across the city, Ilara stood on a small rise overlooking the central plaza. From this vantage, she could see both the army outside and the rebel positions within. The city seemed tense, fragile, as if it were holding its breath. She inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of the moment. Soon her choices would determine the fate of thousands of lives, and for the first time in her career, she realized that standing alone might be the only way to protect those who could not protect themselves. Her hand rested on the hilt of her sidearm, not out of aggression, but as a reminder that human courage often required readiness. Her mind raced with possibilities, strategies, negotiations, contingencies, but her heart remained clear. She could not turn away. She would face this storm alone if necessary, because humanity demanded it. Ilara looked out across the city one last time before night fully fell, and she whispered to herself almost as a promise, "I will stand. No matter what comes, I will not turn away." And with that, the calm before the storm faded, replaced by the quiet tension of a world on the edge, waiting for the human who refused to abandon her conscience, her duty, or the lives of her people. The city below was quiet, but the calm was deceptive. Smoke still curled from a few damaged buildings, and the faint sound of movement hinted that the rebellion had not yet revealed all of its strength. Captain Ilara Miles stood at the edge of a small hill overlooking the northern sector, her eyes scanning the streets and alleyways. Every shadow, every flicker of movement mattered. Her army remained outside the city limits, forming tight formations around the perimeter. Soldiers adjusted their weapons and checked communications, waiting for her orders. Lieutenant Raiden approached her, his expression tight with concern. "Captain," he said, "we need a plan of attack. The rebel positions are fortified, and our intelligence suggests they have advanced defensive measures. Waiting much longer could give them an advantage." Ilara shook her head slowly. "Raiden, attacking blindly is not an option. There are civilians inside, hiding among the rebels. I will not risk innocent lives for a simple victory." Raiden's frown deepened. "With respect, Captain, High Command will not understand hesitation. They want this rebellion ended quickly." Ilara's gaze softened, but her resolve remained firm. "Then I will find a way to end it without unnecessary bloodshed. That is the difference between humans and machines, Raiden. We think, we reason, we value life." She descended from the hill alone, stepping carefully into the streets below. The city's silence was punctuated by small noises, children crying, distant shouts, the faint hum of machinery. It was a fragile peace, but one that she had to navigate with caution. As she moved deeper into the city, she saw the signs of preparation. Barricades were reinforced with metal scraps, windows were shuttered, and small patrols of armed humans moved cautiously through narrow streets. Some of them caught sight of her and froze, unsure if she was friend or foe. Alara raised her hand slightly, showing no threat. "I am not here to hurt you," she called softly. Her voice carried through the alleyways, calm but firm. "I want to talk. There is no need for more blood." A small group of rebels emerged from behind a barricade, their weapons trained on her. They were young, their faces tense with fear and determination. Alara took a careful step forward. "I understand why you are here," she said. "You believe you are protecting your homes, your families. But there is more at play than you realize. Others are manipulating this conflict, forcing humans to fight humans. You do not have to follow that path." The rebels hesitated, exchanging uncertain glances. Their leader, a woman slightly older than the others, stepped forward. Her eyes were hard but wary. "And why should we trust you?" she demanded. "You come with soldiers outside ready to kill us if we refuse. How do we know you are not like them?" Alara took a deep breath. "Because I am human, and humans make choices. I can stand alone here in your city without my army to talk with you. I can choose not to fire a single shot. My loyalty is to life, not orders that endanger it." A tense silence followed. The rebels' leader studied her carefully, then slowly lowered her weapon. The others followed suit, though their eyes remained wary. Alara seized the opportunity. "Tell me everything," she urged. "Why are you fighting? Who is leading you? And what do you hope to achieve?" The leader spoke cautiously. "We fight because we have no choice. The colonies were promised independence, fairness, protection. But we have seen corruption, exploitation. We rise because survival leaves us no alternative, but we did not expect to face an army like yours." Alara nodded, her mind piecing together the situation. "You were manipulated. There are outside influences, alien forces that seek to weaken humanity by forcing humans to fight each other. I have seen signs. I need your help to reveal the truth," the rebels whispered among themselves. Fear and doubt mingled with curiosity. Slowly, the young leader spoke again. "If what you say is true, then maybe there is another way. But how do we know we can trust you?" Alara extended her hand, not as a threat but as a gesture of trust. "Because I stand alone. I have nothing to gain except peace. Let me show you. Let me work with you to protect the people of this city." Hours passed as she moved through the streets, speaking with civilians and rebels alike. She listened to their fears, their hopes, their stories of oppression. Every encounter strengthened her resolve. She realized that the rebellion was not born of hatred but of desperation. And in that desperation, humans were still capable of reason, of courage, of cooperation. Her communicator buzzed. Ryden's voice was tense. "Captain, we are receiving reports of rebel groups mobilizing in the eastern sector. They refuse to surrender. They are preparing for combat." Alara exhaled slowly. She had anticipated resistance, but the city's maze of streets and hidden paths made conventional combat dangerous. "Tell the army to hold position. No engagement unless absolutely necessary. I will deal with them directly." She moved toward the eastern sector alone, her presence a symbol of determination. The rebels there were young, poorly trained, but fierce. They were motivated by fear and hope in equal measure. As she approached, one of them raised a weapon. Alara froze, showing no fear. "I do not want to fight," she said. "Put down your weapon. You are humans. You do not have to destroy each other for survival." For a tense moment, nothing happened. Then the young rebel lowered his weapon slightly, uncertainty in his eyes. Alara continued, walking slowly among them, showing that she meant no harm. In that moment, she realized the weight of her choice. Every step she took could determine life or death. Yet she pressed forward, driven by the belief that humans could solve problems through courage, empathy, and intelligence. By nightfall, Alara had moved through most of the city, negotiating with various groups, calming civilians, and convincing some rebels to stand down. Her efforts had reduced potential casualties, but she knew the hardest part was yet to come. Some factions were still unwilling to listen. Others were hiding secrets, preparing for confrontation. She returned to the central plaza and paused. looking up at the night sky. The twin moons reflected faintly on the rooftops, casting silver light on the streets. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine a future where the city was safe, where humans could find peace even in the shadow of conflict. Her communicator buzzed again. Raiden's voice was urgent. "Captain, some rebel cells are regrouping and fortifying positions near the industrial complex. They are heavily armed and organized. We estimate at least 1,000 fighters there." Ilara's jaw tightened. This was the core of the rebellion, the group most resistant to reason. But she did not hesitate. "I will go," she said. "We can end this peacefully if we show them that humanity can lead with conscience. Tell the army to remain in position. No one fires unless absolutely necessary." She prepared herself mentally and physically, checking her sidearm and light armor. She knew the risks. Being alone against such a force could mean death. Yet she also knew that sometimes humanity's strength lay not in numbers or firepower, but in courage, integrity, and the refusal to abandon conscience. As she approached the industrial complex, the sounds of the city changed. The hum of machinery and distant shouts created a tense symphony. Shadows shifted as rebels moved within buildings and barricades. Yet despite the danger, Ilara's presence carried authority. She was not just a soldier. She was a human who stood for reason, who valued life above orders or fear. She stepped into the central street leading to the complex and raised her hands. "I am Captain Ilara Miles," she called. "I have come alone to speak. No harm will come to you if you listen. We can find a way to survive together without needless bloodshed." For a long moment, silence answered her. Then a voice called out from the shadows. "Why should we trust a human who brings soldiers behind her?" Ilara's voice was calm but firm. "Because I do not bring them here. I walk alone. My loyalty is to life, not to blind orders. I will not fire, and I ask the same of you. Humanity is stronger than fear. Stand with me and we can end this conflict together." The rebels hesitated, their eyes darting toward one another. Slowly, the tension began to shift. Some lowered weapons, others stepped back. The balance of fear and courage began to tip. And in that moment, Ilara realized the first step had been taken, not by an army, not by machines, but by a single human who refused to turn away. The city was far from safe, and the path ahead was uncertain. But for the first time, hope flickered in the hearts of humans on both sides, and that hope, fragile and bright, was a testament to the strength of humanity, the ability to face impossible odds and still choose life, conscience, and courage. Ilara knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges. Some would resist her, some would test her limits, yet she stood alone, prepared to face whatever came because she could not and would not turn away from those who needed her. The city streets were tense, filled with the quiet hum of anticipation. Captain Ilara Miles moved carefully through the northern blocks, her presence alone enough to draw the eyes of rebels and civilians alike. Word had spread quickly. This human, alone and unarmed for the most part, refused to bring the army into the city. The rebels were curious, wary, and suspicious, but they could not ignore her courage. Ilara approached the central plaza, where the largest group of rebels had gathered. They had fortified the area with barricades, machinery, and improvised weapons. At the center, the rebel leaders waited, their faces a mix of defiance and anxiety. The city around them seemed to hold its breath, as if it too were watching to see what would happen next. "I am here alone," Ilara called, her voice carrying across the square. "I come not to fight, but to speak. I want to understand and I want to protect your people. The soldiers outside will not enter if you listen to me. You do not have to shed blood to be heard." The largest of the rebel leaders, a tall man with gray streaks in his hair, stepped forward. "Words mean nothing, human," he said. "We have seen promises broken. We have seen our families suffer. Why should we trust you now?" Ilara's green eyes met his with steady calm. "Because I am human," she said simply. "And humans make choices. I choose life over violence. I choose reason over fear. I stand here alone because I believe in that choice, and I ask you to make it with me." The rebels shifted uneasily. Some glanced toward the army still holding position outside, while others whispered among themselves. Their weapons remained raised, but doubt had crept into their expressions. They had expected fear, aggression, and commands. They had not expected empathy and courage. Ilara took a step forward. "I know your anger is real. I know your fear is real, but someone else has manipulated it. An outside force, aliens who wish to see humans fight each other. They want our strength to break us apart. I have seen signs of it, and I need your help to stop it. One of the younger rebels, a girl no older than 17, lowered her weapon slightly. Aliens? She asked. How do we know you are telling the truth? Ilara held out her communicator, showing real-time scans of alien energy signatures near the city. They are here influencing your decisions, whispering fear into hearts. They are not your enemy, but they are using you as a weapon against your own people. If we work together, we can reveal them and protect humanity. A tense silence followed. The rebel leaders exchanged glances. Some were skeptical, some hopeful. Slowly, the tall, gray-haired man lowered his weapon, though others remained ready to fire. You are brave, human, he said finally, or foolish. Perhaps both. But your words, they carry weight. If what you say is true, then maybe we have been fighting the wrong enemy. Ilara nodded. The wrong enemy is always the one we fear most. But we can choose to see clearly. We can choose life. At that moment, shouts erupted from the side streets. A group of rebel cells had refused to listen. They were armed and angry, determined to fight anyone who stood against them. Ilara's heart sank, but she did not flinch. She knew she could not allow innocent people to be caught in crossfire. She stepped toward the approaching rebels, her voice strong and calm. Stop! You do not have to fight! Look around you. This is not the way to protect your people. Stand down and I promise no harm will come to you. The rebels hesitated, their weapons wavering. Her courage, her presence, and her words created a pause in the chaos. A small group of civilians took the opportunity to slip behind barricades, moving to safety. The sight of life being protected strengthened Ilara's resolve. Then one of the rebel leaders sneered and fired a shot near her feet, not to hit, but to test her. Ilara ducked instinctively, keeping calm. See? Violence begets violence, she said, standing again. You can choose another path. You can protect your people without killing. I am proof that humans can act differently. Slowly, the rebels lowered their weapons, though tension remained thick in the air. Ilara moved among them, speaking to small groups, calming fears, answering questions. She listened as much as she spoke, showing that she valued their lives and their voices. Hours passed as she negotiated, reasoned, and demonstrated trust. Some rebel factions joined her voluntarily, laying down their weapons and agreeing to help evacuate civilians and protect the city. Others were still hesitant, but her calm bravery inspired hope. From the rooftops, Ilara spotted alien scouts attempting to interfere with communications and sensors. She realized the manipulation was not yet complete. She moved swiftly, disabling alien devices with careful precision. The rebels watched in awe as this lone human neutralized threats far beyond ordinary capability. You are not like any human we have seen, one young rebel whispered. You face death without fear, yet you do not hate. How? Ilara smiled faintly. Because courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is acting despite fear, and humanity is strongest when we protect life, not destroy it. By nightfall, she had gained temporary control of the plaza. The remaining rebels had either agreed to listen or retreated to the edges of the city. Civilians were gathering in safe zones, guided by both Ilara and the small number of rebels who trusted her. Her communicator buzzed. Raiden's voice was tense but impressed. Captain, the Army reports that your actions have prevented an all-out battle. Casualties could have been catastrophic. We are monitoring, but you may have bought time. Ilara exhaled, her body tense but her mind alert. Time is only useful if we use it wisely, she replied. We must address the alien influence directly. We cannot allow fear to rule this city or any human settlement. She turned to the remaining rebel leaders. Tonight we stand together. Tomorrow we will show the truth to all of humanity, not through force but through reason. We will confront the aliens and we will survive. Together. The rebels nodded, some reluctantly, some with newfound determination. Even in their hesitation, a spark of hope was growing. They had witnessed a human stand alone against overwhelming odds and still act with reason, courage, and compassion. That example would not be forgotten. Ilara spent the remainder of the night organizing patrols, evacuation routes, and communication channels. She ensured that civilians were safe and that any remaining hostile factions were contained. Every decision she made was calculated, balancing risk with protection, demonstrating leadership beyond mere military orders. As the first light of dawn crept across the city, Ilara climbed to the top of a small tower in the plaza. From there, she could see both the army waiting outside and the rebels beginning to cooperate. The city had survived the night without bloodshed. She looked across the horizon and whispered to herself, as she often did before battle, "This is why humans endure. This is why we stand strong. We face fear, not alone, but with courage and conscience." Her heart was heavy with the knowledge that the day ahead would bring new challenges. Some rebel factions would still resist, and the alien influence had not been fully revealed. But Ilara had proven a truth that no enemy could ignore. Humanity could stand against impossible odds, even alone, and still choose life, reason, and hope. For the first time, the city seemed not like a battlefield, but a place of potential. Potential for unity, potential for understanding, potential for humans to rise above fear and manipulation. And at the center of that potential stood a single human, fearless and steadfast, refusing to turn away. Ilara's stand was more than a tactical maneuver. It was a declaration of human resilience. Her courage inspired both soldiers and civilians, both rebels and allies. She had shown that true strength was not measured by firepower, but by the ability to act wisely, bravely, and morally, even when facing overwhelming odds. As the sun rose, painting the city in gold and silver, Ilara knew that the fight was far from over. But she also knew that humanity had something no alien force could ever replicate: the courage to stand alone, to protect life, and to make choices guided by conscience rather than fear. And she would continue to stand, no matter the cost, because that was what it meant to be human. The morning sun stretched across the city of Raltharis, casting long shadows on the barricades and shattered streets. The air was tense but charged with possibility. Captain Ilara Miles stood atop a reinforced tower in the central plaza, surveying the city below. After a night of negotiations, careful maneuvers, and displays of courage, she had gained temporary control of the situation. But the real challenge was only beginning. The rebels who had chosen to listen now moved through the streets, guiding civilians to safer zones and fortifying positions to prevent further chaos. Those who had resisted were regrouping at the edges of the city, still suspicious, still unwilling to trust a single human. And somewhere, hidden from sight, alien agents continued their subtle interference, attempting to manipulate communications and sensors. Ilara did not flinch. She had come here prepared for every possibility, and she would face it head-on. "Captain," Lieutenant Ryden's voice came through her communicator, steady but urgent. "Our sensors confirm alien devices within the industrial complex. They are projecting interference that could manipulate both rebels and civilians. Immediate action is required." Ilara took a deep breath. "Understood. Assemble a team of the most reliable humans among the rebels. We move carefully, quietly. No alarms, no panic. We expose the alien influence and neutralize it together." She moved through the city streets, her steps measured, her eyes scanning every shadow. A small group of trusted rebel leaders followed her, skeptical but obedient. Civilians peeked from behind walls, sensing the calm authority she radiated. Soldiers outside the city waited for her signal, ready to enter only if absolutely necessary. As they approached the industrial complex, the signs of alien interference became clearer. Strange devices hummed with energy, projecting subtle pulses that affected sensors, communications, and even the moods of humans nearby. Rebels who had been hesitant began to act strangely. Aggressive one moment, confused the next. Ilara knelt beside one of the devices, her fingers steady as she examined it. "This is what has been manipulating them," she said. "It is subtle, clever, but not stronger than human intelligence. Watch and learn." She worked quickly, using her knowledge of technology, psychology, and strategy to dismantle the devices. One by one, the alien influence faded and the rebels' behavior returned to normal. Some of them gasped, realizing how close they had come to fighting each other without reason. A young rebel, no older than 15, looked at her in awe. You knew what to do," he whispered. "You faced them alone and saved us." Ilara smiled faintly. "Not alone," she corrected. "We did this together. Humans are stronger when we work with each other, when we act with courage and conscience. That is how we survive." The industrial complex cleared. She turned her attention to the remaining rebel cells. Many were still hesitant, but now that the alien influence was gone, reasoning with them became possible. She walked calmly into their midst, unarmed but confident. "You have nothing to fear," she said. "The devices are gone. No one is here to manipulate you. You can choose to lay down your weapons, protect civilians, and survive. or you can fight and face destruction. The rebels hesitated. Some glanced at the civilians who had gathered safely nearby. Others looked at her, seeing not a soldier, but a human who had stood alone against impossible odds. Slowly, one by one, they lowered their weapons. By the time the sun reached its highest point, nearly all rebel factions had agreed to follow her guidance. Alara exhaled slowly, allowing herself a brief moment of relief. She knew the day was not yet over, but a major victory had been won, not by overwhelming firepower, but by courage, reason, and leadership. She turned to the remaining rebel leaders. Now we work together. We will secure the city, protect civilians, and ensure no one is manipulated again. This is what humans do. We protect life even when faced with fear and manipulation. The leaders nodded. Even the tall gray-haired man, once skeptical, now showed signs of respect. "Captain Miles," he said, "you have shown us what it means to be human." "We will follow your lead," Alara smiled faintly. "Then let us begin." Over the next several hours, she coordinated efforts between her army, the cooperative rebels, and the civilians. Evacuation routes were established, patrols maintained, and communication lines secured. Every move was calculated to minimize risk, protect life, and ensure the city could survive without further bloodshed. From her vantage point, she observed humans of all backgrounds working together, soldiers guiding civilians, former rebels securing streets, and children being led to safety. The scene was chaotic, yet there was order, a testament to the resilience and intelligence of humans when guided by reason and courage. Her communicator buzzed again. Ryden's voice was urgent. "Captain, we are detecting remaining alien energy signatures in the Northern Communications Hub. They may attempt to restore interference if we do not act quickly." Alara nodded. "Then we move now." "Gather a small strike team. We proceed carefully, ensuring civilians remain safe. This ends today." She led the team to the communications hub, a towering structure at the edge of the city. The alien devices were larger here, more sophisticated, and guarded by a few loyal rebels still unaware of the manipulation. Alara approached calmly, speaking to them with the same confidence and compassion that had guided her through the city. "You are being used," she said. "Not by humans, but by outside forces who wish to see you fight your own people. Lay down your weapons. No one will harm you. Humanity can solve this together." The rebels wavered, confusion and doubt in their eyes. Slowly, the device's influence began to fade as Alara and her team dismantled them. The rebels looked around, realizing they had been manipulated. Shock, relief, and gratitude mixed on their faces. One of them, a young man with trembling hands, said, We almost destroyed everything." Alara placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "You did not. And now you can help rebuild. Humans are capable of mistakes, but we are also capable of courage, wisdom, and cooperation. That is what makes us strong." With the alien influence gone, the city began to breathe again. Civilians returned to their homes under careful guidance, and the remaining rebels joined in the efforts to restore order. The army outside, having witnessed her courage and strategy, now moved in to assist, not to fight. Alara stood in the plaza, watching the city recover. Her mind reflected on the events of the past day, the moral choices, the courage, the teamwork, and the refusal to turn away. Humans had faced manipulation, fear, and overwhelming odds, yet they had prevailed without needless bloodshed. Lieutenant Ryden approached, his face a mixture of admiration and relief. "Captain, High Command will hear of this. They may not understand your methods, but they cannot ignore the results. The city is safe, the rebellion dissolved, and alien influence neutralized. You have done what few could even imagine." Alara shook her head. "It was not me alone. It was humans working together, soldiers, civilians, and even former rebels. Courage is contagious. Conscience spreads when we act on it. That is how humanity stands strong, even when faced with impossible odds." The city, once tense and on the brink of chaos, now buzzed with cautious hope. Markets began to reopen. Children cautiously played in streets and families reunited. Everywhere, humans were reminded of what made them exceptional: the ability to reason, to act bravely, and to protect life. As dusk fell, Alara climbed once more to the top of the central tower. From this height, she could see the city fully, the people moving, rebuilding, and learning to trust again. Her heart swelled with pride, not for herself but for humanity. She whispered softly, almost to herself. This is why we endure. This is why humans are strong. Not because of numbers or firepower, but because of courage, conscience, and the refusal to turn away. Even as darkness fell, the city glimmered with lights from homes and street lamps, a symbol that life had returned, that hope had survived. And at the center of it all stood a human who had proven that one person, acting with courage and moral clarity, could inspire thousands, face impossible odds, and turn the tide of destiny. Ilara knew that the battle was not completely over. Some rebel factions still lingered, and the aliens had not been fully revealed. But humanity's resilience had been proven, and she would continue to stand, guiding, protecting, and inspiring, because that was what it meant to be human. As the stars appeared in the night sky, she gazed upward, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but humanity had already shown it could overcome fear, manipulation, and adversity. And at the heart of that triumph was the courage to act, the clarity to reason, and the will to stand alone if necessary. Raltheris would survive. Humanity would endure, and one human, Captain Ilara Miles, had shown what it truly meant to be human. The first light of dawn stretched across Raltheris, painting the city in soft gold and silver. The streets, once tense and dangerous, now buzzed quietly with life. Civilians cautiously emerged from shelters, and former rebels moved among them, assisting in rebuilding homes and clearing debris. Captain Ilara Miles stood at the center of the plaza, observing the scene with a mixture of relief and resolve. It had been days of continuous effort. Ilara had worked tirelessly to neutralize the alien devices, negotiate with rebel factions, and guide the army outside to act in support rather than aggression. The city was safe, but her work was far from over. She knew that Raltheris's recovery depended not only on immediate safety, but on long-term understanding and trust. Lieutenant Ryden approached her, reporting updates from High Command. Captain, we have secured communication lines with the outer colonies. They are surprised at the outcome. No other rebellion has ended with such few casualties. Your methods, they are unprecedented, Ilara nodded. They are not methods. They are choices. Humanity is capable of reasoning, courage, and compassion. We did not win by force, we won by standing for life even when facing overwhelming odds. The lieutenant studied her quietly. It will take time for others to understand that. Many in high command expect action through command, through orders and firepower. Your approach, it is different. That is because humans are different, Ilara said firmly. We are not machines. We are capable of empathy, of thinking beyond immediate orders. That is our strength, and that strength is what saved this city. Word of the city's survival spread quickly. Other colonies, hearing of a human who had stood alone against overwhelming odds and prevented unnecessary bloodshed, began to see humanity in a new light. Humans were not just soldiers or colonists. They were beings capable of courage, reason, and moral clarity. Ilara continued her work in Raltheris, coordinating with civilians, former rebels, and her army to rebuild infrastructure, restore communication networks, and secure resources. Every action she took reinforced a single truth. Humanity thrived when guided by courage and conscience rather than fear and aggression. One afternoon, while overseeing the clearing of a collapsed building, she noticed a small group of children playing among the rubble. Their laughter was tentative but genuine. One of the children ran to her, clutching a piece of salvaged metal as if it were a treasure. "Captain," he said shyly, "you saved us." Ilara knelt down to meet his eyes. "No, we saved each other," she said softly. "Humans help humans. That is how we survive, how we grow stronger. Remember that." The child smiled, and she felt a deep sense of hope. These were the future of humanity. Those who had witnessed courage and learned its value. They would carry the lessons forward. Later, she met with the remaining rebel leaders, including the tall, gray-haired man who had once doubted her. They gathered in the central plaza, now cleared of debris, the sunlight glinting off the repaired surfaces. "You have done something remarkable," he said, his voice steady, but filled with respect. "You faced our anger, our fear, and our doubts, and you did not falter. You showed us that we do not have to fight each other to survive. We can choose reason, courage, and life." Ilara's eyes softened. "The choice is always ours. It is easy to follow orders without question. It is hard to stand alone. to act with conscience when everyone expects obedience. But that is what makes us human. That is what will carry humanity forward. The rebel leader nodded. We will help rebuild. We will spread the truth of what happened here, not because of fear, but because of hope and understanding. You have given us a reason to believe in ourselves again. Alara smiled faintly. Then our work is not just about survival. It is about legacy, about teaching humans and all who witness our actions that courage, conscience, and wisdom can triumph even against overwhelming odds. As the days passed, the city continued to recover. Markets reopened, children returned to schools, and families rebuilt homes. Former rebels became allies, sharing their skills and knowledge with the citizens. Alara oversaw every operation, but she also allowed space for humans to learn, adapt, and thrive on their own. She understood that true strength came from empowering others, not controlling them. Meanwhile, reports from high command arrived in increasing numbers. Humans across the galaxy had heard of Raltheris's survival, of a single human standing alone against her army in the rebellion, and of the courage that had preserved countless lives. Other species too took notice, recognizing that humanity was not to be underestimated, that humans possessed ingenuity, resilience, and a moral compass that guided their strength. In private moments, Alara reflected on the weight of leadership. She had faced impossible odds, made decisions that could have cost lives, and stood alone when the outcome was uncertain. She had experienced fear, loneliness, and doubt, but she had not turned away. And that refusal to abandon her conscience had defined her and, in some ways, defined humanity itself. One evening, as she walked through the central plaza, now filled with citizens returning to their daily lives, she observed the city from a distance. Lights glimmered in homes, children's laughter echoed in streets, and humans worked together to repair what had been broken. The city was alive, resilient, and thriving, not because of orders, not because of force, but because humans had chosen courage and conscience. A young former rebel approached her, carrying supplies for a rebuilding project. "Captain Miles," he said quietly, "what you did, it changed us. We were ready to fight blindly, but you showed us another way. How can we ever repay you?" Alara shook her head gently. "You do not repay me. You repay humanity by remembering what we are capable of, by protecting life, by acting with courage, and by refusing to abandon what is right, even when it is difficult. That is the true legacy." As night fell, she climbed to the top of the tower once more, gazing at the stars above Raltheris. The twin moons reflected silver light across the city, a reminder of the fragile beauty she had helped protect. Across the galaxy, humans would hear of what had happened here, and her actions would inspire generations to come. Alara's thoughts drifted to the future. Humanity's challenges were far from over. Other colonies would face conflicts, other species might test their resolve, and the unknown dangers of the galaxy awaited. But she felt a profound certainty. Humans would endure. They would face fear, manipulation, and overwhelming odds with courage, intelligence, and conscience. Her hand rested on the railing of the tower, steady and sure. "This is why we are human," she whispered to the night. "We endure because we choose life, courage, and reason. We stand alone when necessary and together when possible, and we never turn away from those who need us." In the days that followed, the story of Raltheris spread across the galaxy. Humans in other colonies spoke of a single human who had stood against her army in the rebellion, refusing to follow orders blindly, and instead choosing to protect life and reason. Her courage inspired both soldiers and civilians, and her actions became a lesson for all who witnessed them. Humanity's strength was not just in numbers or weapons, but in the ability to act wisely, bravely, and morally. Even against impossible odds, the city thrived. Humans and former rebels rebuilt homes, repaired infrastructure, and restored communication networks. Children played freely in streets that had once been battlegrounds. Citizens celebrated the return of peace not as a victory of force, but as a triumph of human courage and conscience. Captain Alara Miles remained at the heart of it all, guiding, protecting, and inspiring. She knew that challenges would continue, that new conflicts and dangers would arise, but humanity had proven itself once again, capable of standing alone, capable of choosing courage over fear, and capable of shaping its destiny with wisdom and conscience. One evening, as the city lights twinkled like stars on the ground, Alara looked toward the heavens. She imagined humanity's reach across the galaxy, knowing that wherever humans went, They would carry the lessons of Raltharis with them, the power of courage, the importance of conscience, and the enduring strength of standing alone when necessary. And as she watched the twin moons rise, casting silver light across the city, she smiled. Humanity would endure. Humanity would thrive. And one human who had refused to turn away had reminded them all of the extraordinary strength that lay within every human heart. Raltharis would remember. Humanity would remember. And the galaxy, too, would learn that humans were capable of courage and conscience unlike any other species. Captain Alara Miles had become more than a soldier. She had become a symbol, the human who stood alone, who acted with conscience, and who showed that true strength lies not in power, but in courage, wisdom, and the refusal to abandon life itself.